Right, good afternoon and welcome to today's session. So this is the first in the beginner series of webinars that we have planned for the academic year 2023 to 24. My name is Nikki Kimball. I'm one of the educational consultants here at Just Too Easy. So for today's session we have a scheduled finish for 4:30. Questions can be asked as we go along if you have them. I will be hosting a Q&A session at the end of the training should you need to put me on the spot. I do have two very able assistants in the background. I have Danny and Sophie who will be able to answer any questions in the chat. The session is being recorded and will be made available through YouTube. Now in today's session we're going to be having a look at what is Just Too Easy. So for those of you that are brand new to it, we'll be starting right from the beginning and explaining what Just Too Easy is, how you can access Just Too Easy, and we'll also be delivering some practical sessions. So you may want to follow along this training with a device separate to the one that you are watching on, because that will give you an opportunity to follow along with the practical activities. So practical activities, we're going to look at JIT Paint and Write and also J2E5. I'm going to showcase to you how you can get your students onto Just Too Easy very easily using our QR code logins. We're going to look at the basic workflow, so how you can save and share content with your students and how you can monitor the content that your students are creating. We're going to talk about assessment for learning, and part of that's going to be our learning conversations and also tagging against progressional frameworks. Hopefully we're going to have enough time to look at setting your own spellings in Spellblast, and we're going to finish up by having a quick look at the resource library and the resources that are available to you to use. As I said, we're going to have a Q&A session at the end, and then I'm going to signpost you in the direction of any further support and training. Right, first up, what is Just Too Easy? So Just Too Easy is a learning platform that is designed specifically for education. Now the beauty of that is that it's very easy to use, it's icon based, it's colourful and it's intuitive. So hopefully you and your students will be able to hit the ground running and start using this straight away. We want our learners to be able to create, share and learn using the tools. The tools are cross-curricular, so you can use them for all aspects of the curriculum, be it writing, numeracy, geography, history, whatever you want to use it for. Certain tools are suitable from foundation stage all the way up to key stage 3. So in today's session, we're just going to give you a brief overview, and hopefully there'll be at least one tool that you will be able to go away and use with your year group. And a lot of the tools have accessibility tools built into them. So things like word lists, text to speech, speech to text. They're there to add that extra scaffolding for any student that might need that extra support. Now accessing Just Too Easy, this can be done through any networked device. So as long as it has an internet connection and an internet browser, you'll be able to log in and access your content. The tools are built around an easy drag and drop cloud-based storage area, and that is called your My Files area. So much like OneDrive or Google Drive, our version is called My Files. Now My Files has unlimited capacity. Anything that you save into your My Files can be shared or collaborated with other users. So whether that's pupils or colleagues, you can share this with classes, schools, or worldwide and externally. Now accessing Just Too Easy. So we have a number of different people joining us from all areas of the UK and beyond. So you will have a way of logging in that is personal to you. So just to highlight some of the most common ways of logging in. If you are logging in via our London schools and you're part of the London Grid for Learning or the National Grid for Learning, you will use the LGFL button here and use your LGFL USO to log in. Now, if you're joining us, and I think the majority of you are joining us from Northern Ireland, you will use your C2K login and you will click here on the EA button. So this is j2e.com. So you'll use this button here to log in using your C2K credentials. Those of you joining us from Hub, so our Welsh schools, you will click the Hub button and use your Hub login to log in. Those of you joining us from Scotland or our Glow schools, you'll use the RM Unify button and use your Glow credentials to log in. And there may well be some manual or individual schools. So you'll be using a school name, which you put into this box here. You will have a username and a password. So that is how you're going to log in. That is j2e.com. Now, just to highlight that LGFL, C2K, Hub and Glow, you all have J2E within your managed services. So you will be able to open up your managed service homepage and there should be a tab somewhere in there with J2E. So it really is personal preference whether you want to go via j2e.com, which is where this page is, or whether you want to go via your managed service. Now, also to highlight, we are going to look at QR code logins for students. So if you did want to use QR codes with your students, you can go to j2e.com, you can click this QR code button that will open up a camera app and you'll be able to scan that QR code. There is an alternative way to scan the QR codes, but that is one method you might want to bear in mind. Now, the Launchpad, when you do log in, and if you want to follow along with the practical activities, you will need to log in. You'll land on your Launchpad. So this is what my landing page or my Launchpad looks like. Sometimes called Launchpad, sometimes called J2 Launch, sometimes just called Launch. It's whatever you want to name it, but is the home page. So you can see all the tiles here. We have lots of tiles to choose from. Unfortunately, I would be here all day and then some if we were to cover all of these. We are going to look at a few certain ones, but just to highlight two areas that you might want to look at. So that is the My Files area. So that is where anything that you create and save, you will find within your My Files. It is always that first tab. It's grey. It is in the same place for your students as well. There's also the Help tile. So this is a great way of finding out more information. We're not going to cover a lot of the tools today, so if you did go away and think, do you know what, I want to know more about J2 code, if you open up the help tile, type in J2 code, there'll be a whole wealth of videos and articles, printable articles, that you will be able to use as reference. Now we are going to get straight into the practical activities. So we're going to look at JIT Paint and JIT Write. So I am going to offer you a little bit of time to follow along. We are a bit pressed for time, but if you are watching the recording of this on YouTube, please feel free to pause the video whilst you have a little practice during any of these activities. So we're going to start off with JIT Paint, one of my favourite tools. So JIT is found here off the Launchpad. It's this lovely yellow tile. And JIT is actually a collection of 8 tools within the same tile. There is JIT stands for Just Too Easy Infant Toolkit, so it is geared towards some of our younger learners, but please don't discount this for some of your older learners. There are still some appropriate tools for moving further up the school. So just a brief overview of the 8 tools within JIT before we have a look at JIT Paint. It will always open up into Write, which is our first tool here. And we've got our tabs along the top. So these are great for developing your students' digital literacy, being able to toggle between tabs, much as we would do within our tabs within an internet browser. It always opens up within Write. So that is a basic word processor. Great for teaching your students how to change text size, text font, text colour, It also offers a word list here. We're going to look a bit more into this later. We've got paint, which is the beginnings of painting, creating drawings, illustrations. It's a fantastic, robust little tool. We've also got turtle, which is the beginnings of coding. So I'm just going to showcase you one of the templates we have. It's all around navigating sprites around a screen. Great for your computational thinking, great for your directional language. You'll see here my algorithm builds as we use these arrows here. Now I might want to put a pen down tool. Now I've added that too late, so I can reorder. So it's great for developing your debugging skills. We can play that and see how the outcome has changed. There we go. And we can do things like, let's move this right hand algorithm and see how that affects the outcome. And there we go, it's looking very different already. It does have a simple and an advanced mode. The simple mode, it will move with each click of the direction. The advanced mode, it stays in the home spot and they have to keep playing to see how their algorithms affect that outcome. So it's a great little tool. We've also got chart, great for your data logging and your maths curriculum. You can create different chart types. We've got the chart types along the left hand side there. There's also some templates pre-made ready for you to use. Pictogram, it's beginnings of pictograms. It's all about logging data, so we can create some nice pictograms, favourite fruits in class. And there we go, strawberries are always the favourite, aren't they? So you can talk to your students about what that data looks like, what it's showing. As we hover over any of these items here, it will display a number, so it's interactive. We've got animate, which is the beginnings of stop frame animation. Great for your slightly older students who are maybe starting to think about animation. You can create some really nice topic-based animations there. Branch, which is our branching database. So just to show you this, it's a great way of classifying data using questions. So we use a sorting question. So we could say, can I fly, for example, and you're going to drag the data that correlates with that question, and then you just keep going. So we click OK and it's going to offer us up another question. So do I live in, let's go, Africa? We'll say yes, yes and no, and you keep going and it will build a branching database. Again, we've got a simple version which is just the pictures, and we've also got an advanced version which allows you to add in descriptions. So great for maybe your older students that are using this in the science curriculum. As we get further up the school, they could then research some facts, maybe, I don't know, size, weight, height, age, that sort of thing. You can add that into the description there. And then finally we have Mix. Now Mix is our ebook creator, and you can create multiple pages using different tools. We have different page formats, and this colour in the centre here correlates to the tool that you're using. So I might want to have a chart page or a paint page. I might want to have a paint page with some text on it. And you can add multiple pages. Now we're not going to look at this today, but we are going to look at this in the third session of the beginners webinar series. So please join us for that if you want to know more about Mix. We're going to start with paint. The other thing to point out is our page changes colour. So that's quite important in terms of a classroom management tool. You can see at a glance which students are off on a tangent doing an animation instead of doing their writing, for example. So really nice, quick, easy tip there. So the tools all open up in a similar way. They will prompt you to either choose a template or a background in the centre here. So I am going to choose, let's go for a wood background. As soon as I click on that, that's going to load that as a background. Now, if you've loaded by mistake, maybe you've chosen the wrong one or you don't like how it looks, you can go up to this asterisk here and that will open that up again. Now, for those of you that are joining us that are working further up the school and thinking this looks quite babyish or immature, you do also have the option to extend those skills, and we can choose the Pictures tab. Now, it is loaded into my files, so if you did want to use a photograph, as long as you drag them into my files, you can use those. So for example, I've got this photo of my daughter at nursery, or we could take some photos in school. I don't think I've got any photos in school because I haven't been in school for a long time, but you could choose a photo. You can also take a photograph. Now, we're not going to take a photograph because it won't work with us being on a webinar at the moment. But you could take pictures directly onto this page. Now, a fantastic activity I used to do with my students, we had a superheroes topic that used to last a half term. And this was a really good activity. They would take a selfie. So great digital photography skills there, learning how to take a selfie well. And then they would draw over the top and turn themselves into superheroes. So that was a lovely activity that they used to love doing. The other thing to highlight is we also have this Google search. So we can web search for things. So let's look for woods. And there we go. So we can bring in some photographic background. So there we go, a nice photograph instead. But I'm going to stick with my clip art background. So there we go. Now, just to point out some of the main features in Paint, we have got the 11 preset colours. Great for your early years students that are just getting used to selecting colours and drawing with them. So we could draw on here, or we can use the fill tool and fill that in instead. So there we go. Immediately we've changed our background. So let's change some of that. There we go. We've also got our eraser. Now you can erase as a whole block, so we can fill erase, or you can use the eraser and paint. Now this will erase everything right down to the background. So there we go. Let's take that off. I'm just going to fill erase that. So there we go, I've reset. You've also got the undo button at the top should you prefer to take it away instead of erase it. So those are our 11 preset colours and our eraser, our fill tool and our paint tool. I also want to draw your attention to these two buttons here. So here we have our 3D texture tool. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit just so you can see. And I have a little roller button at the bottom. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click on that roller button, and that's going to bring up our 3D textures. So these are great for adding in a bit of interest into your pictures. So for example, maybe I want to add some bark onto my trees. So there we go. I'm going to just fill that tree, and there we go. It looks like an actual tree. And let's just be a bit finicky. There we go. We have lots of textures to choose from. So we've got some grass, these are great for drawing houses or creating water pictures. And there's lots and lots to choose from. So there we go. I'm going to choose some grass actually. I'm going to make my grassy area look like grass, and there we go. So the other tool that we've got is our colour picker. So again, I've got this little white button, this little pipette, so I'm going to press that, and I've got my colour wheel. So this is great in developing our skills. Beyond that 11 preset colours, we can now select any colour on the colour wheel. Great for linking into your art and design curriculum, talking about different shades, different saturations. There we go. So we've got different shades of the colour. We can go around the outside. So for example, maybe we want to draw a sun. So let's go for a nice yellow colour. There we go. Okay. And I could just draw a nice sunshine. So I'm going to click OK. That has linked that to my paintbrush, and then I'm just going to draw a nice sun in the sky, and let's make that paintbrush a little bit smaller and There we go, add some rays. It wouldn't be a child's drawing without a sunshine with rays of sunlight. And there we go. Now the other thing we can do, so this is kind of a multi-format tool here. Not only can we choose the colour, we can also select a colour that's already been used. So to give you an example of this, I want to maybe extend, I want to add another branch to this tree. So I want it to extend out this way. So if I hover over the tree, I've got this brown colour. You can see that in the sort of in that circle to the right of my pipette. That's showing me what colour I am selecting. So if I hover over the green, it's now green. If I hover over the tree, it's now brown. So if I click that, it has found that specific colour in the colour wheel, and I can click OK, and that has now added that as a paint colour that I can use. So let's just extend that branch, maybe have a branch coming out this way, and there we go. Okay, so that is how we can select specific colours. Then lastly, we also have our clip art up here. So depending on what background you've chosen will determine which clip art library it selects. So this is selected the animals clip art library because I'm in the woods. So I can use these arrows here and find some appropriate animals. So let's add in a bird. I'm going to make my bird much smaller. I'm going to click on my bird, and there we go. I can add my bird onto that tree branch there. I can keep clicking. I'm going to find an owl. Where's my owl? There he is. So I'm going to make that a bit bigger. You do have the option to rotate or flip your owl around, and you've also got the reset button, so if you go horribly wrong you can reset. So I'm going to have my owl facing the other way, and I'm going to put him on the branch up there. Now you might want to use a different clip art library. So to do that, we're going to click where it says animals, and we've got our different clip art libraries to choose from. So I can select, let's have a look at mini beast for example. I might have a bee. Let's make our bee much smaller, and we're going to add our bee down here and flip him around and have another one, maybe one up here, and there we go. Other things that you can do, and again this is building on your skills progression for your students, you can load any picture that is loaded into your My Files, you can share files, and you can also web search. So let's have a look for a rabbit, for example. Now because we're in JIT, this will load clip art images, but you do have the option to include photographs. So these are more sort of scientific looking imagery. So there we go. I quite like this picture because it looks like a rabbit. So when you click on that picture, it will load that up as a stampable clip art image. So let's add our rabbit in there. And then lastly, if you want to add any text or speech bubbles, we do have a speech bubble and a text library. So I can click on any of these. I'm going to choose a font. So let's choose this one. I'm going to make that font a bit bigger. And then I'm going to type here, and I'm going to say, I don't know, forest animals. And that's going to load that as some text. So I can click on that. I can also change the colour of my text. There we go, nice and orange. I'm going to click on my text. I can stamp that anywhere that I like. So I'm going to stamp that just there. So there we go. I have added my background. I have edited my background. I have used my draw tools. I've used my clip art. I've used my texture tool, my colour picker, my colour wheel, and I've stamped in some clip art characters. So I'm going to give you a few minutes just to have a go. If you have any issues or any questions, please pop that in the chat. Okay, I'm going to move you along now. And we're going to have a look at write. Oh, no, I'm going to show you how to save that. So saving your file, you will rename. So let's have woodland animals, for example. Now, just to showcase this, you do have the option to record audio. So this is a great way of capturing evidence, especially for your younger students. You can record them, either describing what they did as part of that activity, maybe showcasing what their drawing is around. Maybe they planned it, maybe it's part of some sort of cartoon that they're creating. So you can hit record. You may be asked for permission, so just allow that, and then you can hit record. So for example, this term we're looking at forest animals. In my picture I've added a rabbit, an owl, a bee and a bird. And there we go, so I can click OK, and that has linked that sound to that file. And then to save, we just click this save button here, lovely orange floppy disk button. They will be given some visual feedback that it's saving, and it will also grey out once it's saved. So that's quite important in my mind, because you know that students can only save one version of that file, and they can also see that it has been saved, so they won't keep clicking and clicking and clicking. So that has saved that as a working file. You can also save as an image, so that will just save the image on its own, and that can be done there in the top right. So we're going to look at write now. So we can open that in a different tab. Again, that is going to open with a template. So it's going to prompt you to choose a template. So there are various templates for you to choose from. So you can scroll down. Again, there are some seasonal ones towards the bottom. And also you have that functionality within the pictures. You can choose maybe a web search. So we could choose, for example, we're looking at the jungle as part of our topic. We could load in a jungle background. Maybe you're doing a jungle poem or some jungle facts. They could then layer some text on top of that. So great for your older students. I'm going to choose a template again. I'm going to choose the beach, for example, and that will load that as a background. Now remember, if you have loaded a background by mistake, you can use that asterisk, and that will open up that dialog box again. Now it is a very simple word processor. It's designed to be simple, so you do just really have being able to choose the text size and the font, so we can change these at a click of a button. They have 6 fonts to choose from, and they can choose the colour of their text. So we could say our day at the beach. Now I might not know how to spell beach, so I do have this word list here. Now this will depend on which background you choose as to which word list will load. So this one obviously is a beach background, so the beach word list has loaded. If you have a woodland background, I think the mini beast word list will load. So we can hover over any of these words and we can use this speech bubble to listen to that word.
Beach.
So if it sounds correct, we can click on it and it will add it into our document. Now for those of you that are using a touch screen device, it's slightly different. If you touch the word once, it will say that word, and if you double click on that word, it will add it into your file. So just be mindful of that if you are teaching in a class maybe where your students are using iPads, that it might be slightly different to showcasing it on your laptop. So just bear that in mind. If you do want to access different word lists, you can use this arrow here at the top of that word list, and that will access your different word lists. Now you can add your own word lists. This is done through JIT 5, so we're not going to look at that today. If that is something that you're interested in, there is a video on YouTube. I think it's one of our tips and tricks, which is a 2-minute video about how to add in your own word lists for your students to use. So that is a functionality that is available. So that is our word lists. We've also got text to speech in the top right hand corner. So this will say either everything on the page, or if you highlight certain areas of the text, it will say what is highlighted. So just to show you, if I press this.
Our day at the beach.
so it will say everything back to us. So it's a great way of building up your students' independence, to be able to check back their work, check if it sounds all right. Anything that is misspelt will be underlined in red, so they can see straight away that they've misspelt a word. And there we go. Now the other thing that we have, I'm just going to finish this sentence, and I'm going to take away some spaces, there we go, is we also have speech to text. This is a great way of capturing evidence for students that maybe struggle with their written language. So if I press this, again, it may ask you for permission to access your microphone. Please just click allow, and then we can dictate a sentence at a time. So here we go. This summer, our class went to the beach. Oh dear, let's cancel that, let's try again. This summer, got another live demo. It's clearly not picking up my dulcet Midlands twang. Let's try again. This summer, our class went to the beach. I mean, that's close enough, so we'll go with that. I can edit it once it's in the document. So if I click add text, I should have said our summer, there we go. And I'm going to change that to a little c, and there we go. So this summer our class went to the beach. So I'm going to see if that sounds all right.
Our day at the beach. This summer our class went to the beach.
And there we go. So there is our text to speech. You can make this as big or small as you want. You can change the text size and colour. If your children are writing more, I would just recommend that you use the smaller font. Otherwise you'll get that sort of, here we go, if I hit enter, you'll have this scroll bar that appears that can sometimes make it look a bit rubbish. But if we delete that. Now it is a very simple word processor. We have a lot of people asking, oh, can you kind of align things or change the spacing? What I would say is just get your students to start using things like the enter key and the space bar to align their work if that is something that you want to do. Then, same as paint, we would click save. So I'm going to give you a minute or two just to have a little practice, have a go, ask any questions in the text. Okay, we're going to move along then. So as I said, you would save that up here. Obviously best practice is you would change your title and then click save. You get that visual feedback and it also grays out so your students get that feedback. So there we have looked at JIT Paint and JIT Write. So just to talk about the workflow, unfortunately this part of the presentation is a bit of a chalk and talk. It's also a bit hard going, so please bear with me. It's a necessary evil because you need to understand where you can find your work, how you can share it, and how you can access your pupil content. So if you are watching this as the recorded webinar, please feel free to pause and have a go. And here we go. So we'll look at workflow and then we will look at assessment and feedback. So anything that you create will be saved into My Files. So you can see there is our beach writing and our woodland animals that we've just created. It's stored in reverse chronological order, so the newest pieces of work will feature at the top, and scrolling back we can see the different pieces of work there. You can search for certain words, so for example let's look for nursery, and that will streamline any work with that, either name in the title or name in the bulk of the work. So if you've got a piece of work and you can't remember what the title is, just search a phrase or something that you know is in that file and it will come up. We can also streamline according to file types. So just to highlight store, that will cover anything that is a Word, spreadsheet or PowerPoint, and that is where you will find those. You can create folders if you want to, and you can recover any deleted work by clicking on your recycle bin. Now, for example, maybe I wanted to use this as a sentence starter for my class, and I want them to open this file and to add to the text. So we can do that by clicking on this green circle with the white eye in it, and that's going to open up our sub menu for this particular piece of work. So this will work on any piece of work in your My Files, and we're going to focus on this share button here. So I'm going to click share, and then we've got this shared with box. So we can share with any student or colleague or class within school. So to do that, I'm just going to scroll in. We've got this double arrow box here. That's going to open up my selection box. So these are all the different groups or users that I can share with. Now it should showcase your registration class, so whichever class you are assigned to. However, it really depends on your managed service and the structural organisation of that managed service. So C2K users, this probably won't work for you because all staff are put into a class called staff. So what you'll probably find is this registration class is actually says staff. That in itself is quite helpful sometimes because there are certain things that you need to share across a whole staff. So you can click that and that will share that with all of the staff in school. But for most of you, that should be your registration class. You can also share with teaching classes. I'm just going to scroll out a little bit. So teaching classes are smaller groups of students that are smaller than your registration class. So for example, you might have a spelling group, or you might have a higher ability group within your literacy group. So you can set up a group of students that maybe sort of 4 or 5 students. Just makes it easier to differentiate your work should you need to. Again, not going to show you how to set up teaching classes today, but there is a video on YouTube should you need to know how to do that. You can share with individual users. So it's great if you're sharing with teachers, for example. Maybe I'm sharing with my my co-teacher, Mr. Danny Young. There we go. You can also share with individual users. So Lottie there, we can share that with Lottie. And then we can share with all classes. So I'm going to share that with my registration class. So that is now shared. Now if I've shared by mistake or I want to remove sharing permissions, I can just press that cross and that will remove that out of that list. Now just to show you where your students or whoever you've shared that content with can access that particular document. So I'm just going to log in here. Should have done this before the session, sorry. I'm going to log in as Lottie. She is part of my class 1. So when she logs in, this is her landing page. She would learn any work that's shared with her by a teacher is in her shared files area. Now what I would get your students to do is just to click that list files. She can go into her class if she wanted to, but list files will show her all of the work that's been shared with her, and there is that beach writing activity that I have set. So I can click in that and she could keep writing. There we go. And she could change, for example, the font size and colour. And there we go. And then she can save that. So that is going to save a copy into her own My File. So that edited version will save into her My Files. So remember, I'm in Lottie. So she would go to My Files. There is that beach writing that she's just completed. The template will remain in the shared file. So it's always there for her to refer back to if she needs to. And that template doesn't change. Now I'm going to go back to my teacher account. And just to show you where you can access your pupils' content. So anything that they've edited, should you want to mark it or see what they've done, you have access to that at all times through the pupil files area, which can be found on this tab along the left hand side called pupil files. There's also a button off your launchpad. They both end up in the same space, so don't worry. And then we can open up our class, so our registration class. And I know Lottie's just completed her work, so I can look in Lottie's folder. There is that completed piece of work, and I can open that up and really have a look at it. I'm going to go back a level, so I'm going to go to my class 1. There is also the option to show all of your pupils' work, so you don't have to go into each pupil's folder to have a look, because that can be quite time consuming. You can tick this box that says list files, and that's going to show me my pupil's work as it comes in now. So any pupil, so if I scroll down, you'll be able to see there's Mohammed's completed work, Jude's completed work, Millie's completed work. So I can see all of my pupils' work in one space. So that is useful. Now, Lottie's piece of work. So she's completed this. Maybe I want to offer some suggestions for improvements. Maybe I want to ask her some questions to check that she's really understood that activity. So I can do that by using this learning conversation. So this speech bubble here. So you can see as I hover over any of these pieces of work, that speech bubble will appear. So let's have a look. I'm going to click on my speech bubble and I'm going to say to Lottie, great start. What can I say? Can you create one more sentence, please? Obviously, you would offer better feedback than that. It's not great feedback. But there we go. So that is a two-way dialogue. In fact, this is a three-way dialogue. If you are using the parent portal, parents will also be able to see and comment in these learning conversations. So please bear that in mind if you are using the parent portal, which we're not going to cover today. We're actually going to cover that in session 2 of the beginners webinar series. So please join us for that, and I will give you more information on the parent portal. So I'm just going to go back to Lottie's account. She will get a notification. So this is her launchpad. If I refresh her page, you'll see that number has gone up. She's got 7 learning conversations now that have had comments in them. And you can see they are red. So as she scrolls through, the red ones means they have not been seen yet. So if I click in that learning conversation, Lottie can read that. She could comment. She could do a thumbs up to say that she's done it. She can record audio. She can take a photograph straight in or upload a file. So we could say, I'm going to click allow. So if it pops up, click allow. Thanks, miss, I have added another sentence. And there we go. And that will send back to the teacher. So just go back to my teacher account. If I refresh if I go back into my class, there we go. There is that learning conversation, and I can see or listen to any of those comments. So that is great for your assessment for learning. Now, for example, if this particular piece of work was then hitting certain targets within your progression framework, we can tag that using J2 Review. So this star next to this piece of work, I can click on that, and that's going to bring up J2 Review. Now this is already preloaded with certain progression frameworks. Depending on where you're joining us from, there will be an attributed progressional framework. So for example, my Glow schools out there, we do have the curriculum for excellence loaded, so that is there and that should load automatically for you. I have lots loaded because I am a trainer, so you will probably have fewer showing, or maybe just the one. My Northern Irish colleagues out there, you will have the SEER progression framework, and that is loaded there. Now, if you want to get a framework added, we can do that for you. So if you are using a slightly different framework, all we need is for you to send us a spreadsheet version, so either an Excel or a CSV format, and we can get that loaded for you. So you can email us with that, and I will give you email details at the end of this webinar. So just bear that in mind. So just choose the appropriate framework that you're working within. So for example, I'm going to work within the SEER, I'm using the wrong one, let's go for using ICT framework, and I'm in year 1, brilliant, and I could say, right, she has expressed ideas by creating pictures and composing text. Yeah, that's a clear target, so I'm going to click that box. Oh, shouldn't come up yet, and you'll see there's a number there, so that's showing me that there are 3 other pieces of work that are tagged against that particular target. So we could say, for example, they are secure at that. I know they have met that target now. So this is great for your middle managers, great if you're an ICT lead, great for other leads of other areas. So for example, we could have communication or using maths. So just bear that in mind. So I can click on that number and that is going to show me the other 2 pieces of work that have been linked to that particular piece of work. I can look at those pieces of work and I can look at those those feedback. So there we go. So that is how you can tag pieces of work against curriculum frameworks using a JIT review. So I'm just going to refresh that page and I'm going to go in, I'm going to list my files, and you'll see that that has listed that target against that piece of work, so I can scroll through and I can see which pieces of work have hit targets. Okay, so I told you it was a bit of a chalk and talk. Necessary evil, so we now know how we can access any content we've saved, how we can share any content with pupils or colleagues, and how you can access your pupils' work. We've also looked at assessment through our learning conversations and also J2 review. Right, J2 dashboard. You can create QR code login cards for your students, and this can be done through dashboard. I am going to fly through this fairly quickly because we are pushed for time, but there is a video about this on YouTube should you want a slower paced video to follow along with. So I'm going to open up my dashboard. I'm just going to close some of these tabs. So dashboard is here. It's a teacher only tool and it will open up into the setup tab. So don't worry too much about this unless you're an ICT lead, in which case please have a look at fine-tuning your options. But we're going to go to the classes tab, which is here. And then we're going to use this QR code button, which is just at the top of this page. And that is going to prompt us to choose your class. So I'm going to choose my class out of the list. And we've got 3 different options. We're not going to look at the parent link codes. That is for linking your parent portal. Again, we're going to look at that in the next session. But we have these 2 codes here. So I have generate user login codes. So these will generate a personal, printable, permanent QR code card for your students. So these I would recommend for lower down the school. You would print these out, cut them up, laminate them if you wish. I used to quite enjoy laminating, it's quite therapeutic. Just keep them safe. And the students would open up either the camera app on their mobile device, or they would navigate to j2e.com and use that QR code button that I showed you earlier, and they would scan this and it logs them straight in. Now this works with any managed service, so this works for not Hub, I'm afraid. It works for Glow, C2K and LGFL. So this will log them directly in. They don't need a username, they don't need a password. So this will help you to claw back some of that time. I've lost many teaching hours just trying to get students logged into certain websites. So hopefully that will help a little bit. We've also got the create a class code. So this works very slightly differently in that I would use this for older students. They would open up the camera app or the j2e.com web page and use that QR code button. They would scan this, so you'd have this up on your panel, your interactive whiteboard, whatever it is that you're presenting on. They would scan this and then they need to choose their name out of a list. So they need to have the maturity to be able to recognise their own name. They also will require a password. So it's a great stepping stone to introduce that, adding in their own password. You can turn that off if you want to. It's entirely up to you. And that will then log them in. These will expire, these QR codes will expire after an hour. But once a student is logged in, they will remain logged in for, I think it's 6 hours before they need to log in again. So a whole school day. So those are your two different options. You've got your codes, your printable cards that are used for your younger students that are permanent, printable and personal. And you've got your QR code, which is for your slightly older students that you display on your interactive whiteboard, that they scan, choose their name out of a list, and they need their password. Right, we're going to have a very quick look at J2E5, one of my most used apps. And in fact, my presentation is written in J2E5. So this is just an example of J2E5. You can add lots of content in there. We can export our animation. So this was made in JIT Animate. We can use things from J2 database. We can add in images, titles, text. And if I just hit edit, so it has a view mode and an edit mode. So in the edit mode, you can see I've got all these buttons along the top and the side and the bottom. So this is just a lovely presentation about the Titanic. So we're going to have a look at how I created this. So we're going to open up J2E5, which is here, and this is what it looks like when it opens up. So you're going to notice I have my tools along the top and the bottom. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change my page colour and my orientation of my page because it's a presentation, so I want it to be in landscape. So I have my page options along the bottom, so I can change my page orientation, so it's now in landscape. I can also choose a paper background, so there are various ones to choose from. The kids love this. I'm not a big fan, personal preference, but there are loads to choose from, as you can see. Now if you want to get rid of it once you've added it, you just need to click that white box at the top and that will get rid. We can also change the page colour to a flat colour, so if I tick this box here, so it's ticked, my colours are along the right hand side there. So we can choose different colours, and there's also different shades, so different saturations. Now I was an SEND teacher for a long time, so this would be one of my favourite things, to teach children that were learning with dyslexia. They can change their own page colour to whichever colour they find easiest. As we all know, they find it very difficult to read black and white. So if you were to teach them how to do this, it gives them some independence to manage their own issues. So there we go. So I've changed my page colour, and then I can click anywhere on that page and I can type my title. So let's go with the Titanic. And there we go. So I'm going to double click that text and I'm going to resize using those blue squares. I'm just going to click and drag, and I can click and drag that box and move it anywhere on the page. I can add some more text. So I'm going to say the Titanic was built in 1912, I want to say. I feel like I should know that by now. So there we go. So we've got our title and the body of our text. So we can just move it around. we can put it over here. We can also change the font for anything. So if we use these font buttons here, we've got our 10 preset ones and the commonly used ones. Now Lexend is in that list, again with my SEND hat on. Lexend is a font that is designed specifically for people with dyslexia. It's supposed to make it slightly easier to read. There are variations of this font. So if I go down to more fonts, if I type in Lexend, there are loads of varieties. You can see here there's some with really wide spacing between the letters, especially this Lexend Zeta. So the letters are really spaced out there, so it just makes it a little bit easier to read. If you like any of these fonts, you can choose the little tick box at the top and you can save up to 10 favourite fonts. Now I've already chosen a number there. So there we go. If I use my drop down menu, these are my favourite fonts. So there we go. We've got our text to speech, so we can double click anything. We've got our text to speech at the top.
The Titanic.
And that will say what is on the page. And we've got our pictures option here. So if I click pictures, this will take me into my files. So we've got all of our files that we've been using today. So you can see there's my wood and my rabbit that I used earlier. We can also do a Google search. So let's look for Titanic. And we can drag any of these pictures, so we can scroll down. We could use clip art if we want to. So there's the flag that was flying on the Titanic. Oh, there's Rose and Leo. I can add in some nice clip art images. Let's take, and there we go. And we can resize any of these images, clicking on them and using those blue squares. We can resize and manoeuvre those around. So there we go. So I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to have a go. Again, if you are watching this as the recording on YouTube, you can pause this video and really have a proper go if you want to. You can ask any questions you want in the chat. Sophie and Danny are in the background ready to take any questions. So I will start back in a couple of minutes. Okay, we're going to move along. So that was J2E5, a great tool. And in fact, my presentation is actually written in J2E5, as you can see. So I used to be a die-hard PowerPoint fan, but now all I use is J2E5. Cross-curricular uses of J2E5. We've got various things in the library, so things like a story, mind map planning. There's some maths activities, science investigation. I will show you the library shortly. And shameless plug here, we're also doing a YouTube live lesson. We have done one, it is pre-recorded, it's available through YouTube if you follow the live tab. Now these are a slightly different concept for training that we have devised, and the concept is that you play this on your interactive whiteboard, You have a device to follow along with, and you and your students follow the lesson. So you see how it's taught, you see how the tool works, you pick up all the skills that your students will. It's curriculum based, it's linked to various topics, and there's also in the description, so there you go, there's me. In the description we will highlight the age group that it's geared towards, and also any prior learning that you might need to undertake before you follow along. And we are relaunching these. There is one on the 26th of September 2023, all about me, using JIT Paint and Write. So that is designed for the slightly younger learners. So you can learn how to use J2E5 alongside your students. Now I've run out of time unfortunately, but there is the option to be able to add your own spelling lists. This can be done through Spell Blast. There is a video on YouTube about how to set your own spellings. This is a great way of using technology to facilitate older methods of teaching. So, you know, your students need to learn their spellings, but this will capture evidence for you. So just to highlight the evidence that can be captured through Blast. Here we go. So your students play it. There are various ones to choose from. Times Table Blast, Sats Blast, Spell Blast. When students have completed spelling tests, here we go. These are my spelling lists that I've set for my students. You will get some data. So you can see 4 children have played this. I can see which students have struggled. So Millie's not doing quite so well. And this will give me an idea. This will be a word cloud of words that are most consistently incorrectly spelt. So these are the whole class, but also we can click on Millie and that will show me which words Millie misspelt incorrectly. So that is that specific spelling list, but we can also capture data for all of the spelling lists for the entire school. So let's have a look at the last year. We can see a bit of an overview. We've got 10 people with the most accurate score, scoring 100%. Charlie's doing really well. So we've got Blast certificates. So Charlie's got 227 questions spelt correctly, so we could print a Blast certificate. And I can also see every class in the school. So let's have a look at year 6. Here we go. We can see which students are struggling slightly. So we can see Callum here is not doing too well and Sean isn't doing too well. So let's have a look at those a bit more in depth. So let's have a look at Callum, and I can see there, so Callum had a bit of a blip in February, but he seems to have improved, so he's doing all right, and that is his word cloud. So let's have a look at Sean instead. I can see Sean hasn't done his spelling since around March time, so that's probably why he's struggling a little bit. So you might need to chase him up. And the black is the class, so we had a bit of a blip, and the blue is the school, so you can track that kind of data. So great for you literacy leads out there. Now we do have a class blog site called J2Webby, so you and your pupils can push content up to the blog site. So each class will have their own blog. Now these blogs are generated when a pupil pushes content. So if your blog isn't showing in J2Webby, that's why you need to get a pupil to push content. So just to show you, you will have this publish button on almost all of the tools, certainly in JIT and J2E5. You can click that and that will push that content. So let's push this. I'm going to just save this. I'm going to say Titanic. Let's go Titanic 12, for example. I'm going to choose which class to publish that to, and I publish that to Webby. Now, if a pupil does that, it does come up with an error code, not an error code, a warning box that it will need to be moderated before it shows. So pupils can't push content and have it published immediately. It needs to be moderated by a teacher, and that can be done through your moderation tile, which is here. So I'm just going to show you J2Webby, which is here. And we have the different blogs. So you can see class 3, they haven't had a pupil push content because there's no class 3 yet. Let's push class, and there we go. There is that content that I've just pushed. There's Lottie's pushed out a animation, so that will play on that website. So any file will retain any interactivity, so you don't lose anything. It's a great way of showcasing best pieces of work for your students. It is something that features in our parent portal. So the parents will have access to this through parent portal. So just be mindful when you're pushing content to please bear in mind things like your photo permissions, not posting students with personal information and that kind of thing. So that is J2 Webby. And then lastly, we're going to have a look at the resource library. Now we have pretty much run out of time, unfortunately, but the library is available to use. It is here at the top of your Launchpad. Now this is teacher made content. The majority of it is made by the Just Too Easy education team, but you are more than welcome to share content that you have created yourself, and you can do that through My Resources, and you can add a resource here. Just please, if you choose to do this, please be mindful not to add any content from other service providers. I'm thinking in particular places like Twinkle. We have had quite a few library submissions where people have snipped Twinkle resources and added them to a page and shared it resource. We can't publish those, unfortunately, because they do belong to other websites. So please just be mindful of that. But there is a community. We have, I think, 1,700 resources now, and we can search for things like, let's look for writing frames, for example. So if I type the keyword writing, I've got lots of different writing frames to choose from. So for example, let's look at this descriptive writing. I can open that up. I can see who's written it. I can see these are the instructions for the students, and there's also some teacher notes. There's a task attached, so I can look at that task, and it is a J2E5 file, so you can start writing onto it. There's also some teacher attachments, so you could add in your own photo into that particular attachment, so you can tailor it to your own students' needs. And there's also a descriptive writing Sunset Beach, so there is the template there for you to use. You can star that, so that will save to your liked resources now if you want to access that easily. So you can save up a bank of liked resources. You can share this with your students. Now, your students won't be able to access anything that isn't shared with them. So if I click My Class and click OK, just to show you, I'm going to look in my student account. Now, because that is shared from the library, it will only be visible in the library. So if I go to the library, there is that descriptive writing activity. My student can open that, so you can see I can only see the instructions that were written for the student. They can click that beach activity. Lottie can start saying sand here, the waves crash, for example. She can double click and move that. And then she can save that. Now that will save a copy into her My Files now. So I would then be able to look at that as part of the pupil files, assess that, offer feedback. So that works in a very similar way to the work that we've looked at already. You've also got the option to set that as homework. Now we're going to look at homework next week, or next session, should I say. So if you want to know more about that, please join us for session 2. And then you can look at your shared resources. So if you want to stop sharing a resource, so for example, maybe we're not looking at feelings now, all I have to do is open that resource, go to shared, and I can untag that, and that now is no longer shared. So that is the library, and there's loads of content in there. So things around Titanic, maths, healthy eating, or your PSHE curriculum. So have a look at those resources. Help. We do have the help tile, but I would definitely have a look at our YouTube channel. So that is here. I'm just going to pause this because it is noisy. We have lots of videos available. There are the live lessons that we've already looked at, but there's things like tips and tricks. So you can see there's the QR code login video that I was telling you about earlier, and the adding your own spelling lists video. You can do things like adding sound to J2E5. You can, there's the colour picker in JIT Paint. These are all 2 minutes long. We've also got the Quick Bites webinar series. These are 15 minutes long maximum. And we've also got things like C2K webinar series and specific videos. We will be creating a beginners webinar playlist. So this will be recorded and feature in there. So that should be up by the end of this week. So that will be there should you need to share it with any colleagues. And lastly, I'm going to ask you to add some feedback. So Danny is going to add this link into the chat for me. So if you do need that, you can scan this QR code and offer us feedback. So just open up a camera app on a device that you have to hand, scan, and that will take you, it takes 2 minutes for this. Just to highlight the next session in this series, which is the beginner session 2, which is the teacher tools session. And we will look at J2 message, J2 stars, J2 homework, and the parent portal. So that will be on October 2nd, 3:30 till 4:30. And you can book your space on that via justtooeasy.com/training. And then finally, our contact details. So if you do need to get in touch with us, please just send us an email, edteam@j2e.com, or you can give us a like or a follow or a message through Facebook or X, formerly known as Twitter. And those are our handles. And also YouTube. So that is our YouTube channel, Just Too Easy TV. So please feel free to give us a like or a follow on any of those. And then finally, I'm going to ask if there are any questions at all. No, stunned silence. Brilliant. Okay. So I'm going to wrap up this webinar now. So thank you very much for giving up your precious time to follow along with this webinar. We hope to see you for session 2 in this series. There are also lots of other training sessions available, not just in the beginner series, but in the intermediate and advanced. So please feel free to book on those. And we hope you enjoy your evening.